Mira had always been fascinated by art. As a graphic designer, she loved collecting unique pieces. One afternoon, while wandering through a flea market, she stumbled upon a painting that instantly drew her in. It was a dark, haunting image of a forest, the trees twisted in unnatural ways, their bark resembling faces twisted in silent screams. A single figure stood at the center, vaguely human, but shrouded in shadow. The vendor, an old man with cloudy eyes, told her it was an antique from an estate sale and offered it for next to nothing. Mira couldn't resist. She brought the painting home and hung it in her living room. That night, strange things began happening. It started subtly, scratches along the walls, the soft rustling of leaves, though there were none in the house. The air grew thick, and the smell of damp earth filled her apartment. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but each night, the noises grew louder. One evening, while she was working late, she glanced up at the painting and froze. The shadowy figure had moved. It was now closer to the edge of the forest, its head slightly tilted, as if watching her. Mira dismissed it as a trick of the light, but her heart raced. When she looked again, the figure seemed even closer. That night, Mira woke to the sound of creaking wood. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. In the dim light, she saw the figure from the painting standing at the foot of her bed. Its eyes were hollow voids, its limbs long and gnarled, dripping with something dark and wet. She blinked, and it was gone. Desperate, she took the painting down the next morning and locked it in her basement. But the noises didn't stop. They grew worse. Scratches on the door, footsteps in the hall, whispers just outside her bedroom. She was no longer alone. Determined to get rid of it, she tried to burn the painting, but the flames refused to touch it. She tried tearing it apart, but the canvas wouldn't rip. In desperation, she took it to a priest, but even he paled when he saw it, muttering about ancient evils. That night, Mira woke again, but this time, she wasn't alone. The figure from the painting stood in the corner of her room, now fully visible in the dim light, its hollow eyes fixed on her as it slowly reached out. Mira screamed, scrambling out of bed, but her feet couldn't move. Roots, like those of trees, had grown up from the floor and wrapped around her legs. The creature's hand brushed her cheek, cold as death. The last thing Mira saw before the darkness consumed her was the painting, now hanging on her wall again, the figure in the center, staring out with a twisted grin. The next day, her apartment was found empty, except for the painting. The figure in it was back in the middle of the forest, but now there was another shadowy figure standing beside it, one that looked eerily like Mira. And the painting waits, ready for its next owner.